Matt Gaetz, Representative Matt Gaetz of Florida, loves the poorly educated, which is why, of course, he wants to make more poorly educated people by eliminating the Department of Education. In fact, his comments came in after a tweet that he responded to from a post from Representative Mark Green. Now, Mark Green's a Tennessee Republican who is touting something called a Parents' Bill of Rights proposal. So this is something from the Republican House that wants to give parents rights in education. Okay. Now, Green's tweet said, our Parents' Bill of Rights is going to ensure that parents know exactly what their children are being taught in the classroom and have a say in their education. Hashtag commitment to America. Now, Gaetz. So Gaetz does one of these things that Republicans do and goes after so-called rhinos in his party, right? So here's what he wrote. Call me old-fashioned, but I'm actually for ending the federal government's role in education, not enhancing it with new Congress-vested rights. And then added, abolish the federal Department of Education. That should be our commitment to America. Instead, we meme lame commitments. So, again, going after a member of his own party and then saying, look at me, I can be even more extreme by saying, let's get rid of the Department of Education. Now, of course, Matt Gaetz is not the first person to have said that. In fact, a lot of Republicans love to get rid of, these government programs or these government agencies, as well as programs. And so this is really nothing new. Well, we've seen it now for the first time from Matt Gaetz. Okay, so that said, let's actually break down what this, parental Bill of Rights is first. All right, so there it is. It's right from the Republican, Speaker McCarthy, not Speaker, sorry, House Republican leader Kevin McCarthy. This was from in 2021, so it was last year's. And, well, number one, right to know what's being taught in schools and to see the reading material. Now, basically that means we want to know if the kids are learning about how racism is bad. And if we find out, then we're going to try to ban it. Oh, and we also want to read to make sure our kids, are not learning about the existence of gay and trans people. Because if we find that out, like in Florida, we're going to get rid of that too. Okay, well, there you go. The right to be heard. I don't know what that means. How are you not being heard? The MAGA people, right-wingers, you're the loudest motherfuckers around. You never shut up. Ever. It's constant screaming and hollering and crying about everything. About things that don't actually happen. They make up something that is not actually happening and then scream and cry about it. So I don't know what they're talking about. Oh, we're not heard. We're not heard. Okay, whatever. More. Right to see school budget and spending. Again, that's related to, we want to make sure none of our money is being spent teaching how, racism bad or gay people exist. Okay. Right to protect children's privacy. Well, that's interesting because, sure, we'll protect their privacy unless they're gay or trans. Then the school will be mandated, like in Florida, to tell parents about their identities, even if that means that child will be kicked out of their home, punished if they live in, for example, a right-wing religious environment. So we don't actually care about children's privacy. We just want to make sure to say things like that when we actually mean the opposite. Great. And then finally, right to be updated on any violent activity at the school. Now, look, that might actually sound reasonable, right? But here's the thing. When you look at the violent activity at school, usually means one of two things. Mass shootings, which Republicans have done nothing about. They don't really care. They make sure that anyone and everyone can get a gun and that there's more guns in circulation. And the other thing that it means is more police in schools beating up black students, because that's what happens. In fact, the more cops you have stationed at these schools with black and brown students, the more black and brown students get arrested and go to prison. So, again, both are grounds for right-wing priorities. Sell more guns for the gun manufacturers and scare people into supporting more police and schools, which, again, do not stop mass shootings and lead to more black and brown students being pushed down the school to prison pipeline, which is great for prison corporations, private prisons. So, no surprise, this parental rights bill just seems like more culture war nonsense. That said, of course, Republicans have always wanted to eliminate the Department of Education. And what would that do? It would get rid of national standards for education. National standards like, I don't know, teaching things like science and math. Facts. Now, that said, while I do believe that there are some pretty glaring issues with our current education system and the goals of what that is, and how, we really do need to teach more critical thinking and get out of the, mentality of teaching kids how to do jobs that require, conformity, things like factory jobs, which no longer exist, and, get rid of things like standardized testing, etc. And also, by the way, these schools do not accommodate neurodivergent students very well either. And so those are some issues, right? But what Gaetz is looking to do is to make public education worse by getting rid of old standards. Because what you would do is that you would end up having every school district having all different standards, different curriculums, and it would be a mess. It would be a complete and utter disaster because every different place would have sometimes massively different standards. But I guess that's the point. They want to do that. Look, what we have, and I agree that I think education should be left to educators. And they should be able to teach facts. The whole point of school is to gain knowledge. That's the point. Unfortunately, now right-wingers have put education as part of the culture war. Fox News poll, for example, from last October found that 50% of likely voters said that parents should be telling schools what to teach, while 40% said that they shouldn't. The survey found registered voters were split, 45% saying parents should be telling schools what to teach, and 43% saying they shouldn't. Now, look, let me explain why I'm in the shouldn't camp. Because I understand, parents are like, well, but no, I want to make sure our kids are getting the best education. I get that. Unfortunately, there are a lot of parents out there that want the schools to teach things that kids things that are not true. Like literal creationism. Okay? Things that aren't factual. Things like, do you know the Earth is 6,000 years old? Do you know that it's also flat? Or that there are demons that live in your fantasy novels? Or just things that are like, yeah, you might hear all these things about climate change, but and how, emitting massive amounts of carbon dioxide into the atmosphere could accelerate climate change far beyond the natural levels over a short period of time. All that is nonsense, and carbon is great. Oil is awesome. Go coal. That's the kind of stuff that I'm afraid these parents are going to try to put into schools. And by the way, there have already been right-wing groups that have tried to push this stuff. So I don't want those people telling teachers what they're allowed to teach or what they should be teaching. And so, look, those beliefs, they're going to hurt the kids in the end. You don't want that. Because it turns out a solid grasp of reality is going to get you much further in life than believing in nonsense fairy tales. But honestly, again, that's the point, right? That's why right-wingers don't like this. An educated populace, a populace that is able to critically think and challenge authority, that's bad for the far right. That's bad for the establishment. And it's bad because, well, they're harder to mislead, they're harder to trick with nonsense. We had critical thinking. We had, a challenge in the system, challenge of the status quo. Then we wouldn't still have people believing that the wealth will eventually trickle down. And so, I don't know, I'm trying to prevent people from getting misled. I'm trying to prevent people from getting, screwed over and voting against and supporting people that do not have their best interests in mind. Unfortunately, I seem to be, at this point, in the minority. That sucks.